Good afternoon, Wilson Central School District elementary parents and staff. This is Tim Carter, Superintendent of Wilson Central School Districts, with message and updates for February 10th, 2021. It is Wednesday. It's approximately 1:56, almost 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I wanted to give you a little bit of an update before we go into February break. And I hope that everybody does have a happy and healthy February break. First of all, welcome. I'm hoping you get a chance to view this video and it's as informative as possible. To begin, I'm going to do just a quick little COVID update. As of today, Wednesday, February 10th, 2021, at approximately 12:30 p.m., Niagara County reported 14,226 COVID positive cases since March 2020, with 215 of them in the town of Wilson and 64 in the village of Wilson. And currently, the Niagara County DOH is reporting 941 active COVID cases, with 12 in the town and village of Wilson. Our numbers are drastically starting to go down, which is awesome. Hopefully starting to level out. All numbers and indicators are looking positive at this particular time. Currently, we have a total of 50 cases that have affected the staff or students of Wilson Central School District. Of the 50, 35 of them cases were students, 15 were staff members. Last week, we reported 5 positive cases, with very few that affected students and staff in regards to quarantines. My second update for my elementary parents and staff is, as you know, with the reopening plan reboot or refocus, reevaluation that occurred in January, we made a change after the 2-week remote shutdown, in which the elementary school went to 4 days in person and Wednesdays being remote asynchronous. And I will tell you that I received a lot of feedback, most of it positive. I did have some conversations with parents to try and just explain the reasoning behind why we went to remote Wednesdays, and it really had to do with back when we started the conversation about reopening. We really had this deep conversation about what was best for the district. We surveyed staff, we surveyed parents, and it was pretty evident at the elementary level there was a want for 5 days of in-person. So we did some research and we went out and purchased the barriers, and we began the school year. And things seemed to be going pretty well, although stressful at the beginning of the school year. It was evident by the time we got to the end of September that asking our teachers to have their feet in 2 buckets, teaching both remote and also teaching in person, was a monumental task. So soon thereafter, we shrank and added some half days in to help give the teachers some relief in planning, relief in collaboration, relief in just not having to bring home volumes and volumes of work into their home life, to be able to do both remote and in-person instruction. So we did those half days for October and November, and at the end of November it was equally evident that we couldn't keep doing what we were doing. We needed to give some more relief. So for December and January, we put in 2 full-day remote days, either on a Wednesday or we picked a Friday for another one. And I received some feedback from parents about the consistency of that not being so advantageous to the parents. So we began the process of looking at our entire reopening process. We sent out new surveys end of December and January, beginning of January, to parents. We sent it out to staff members, just taking a look at what was absolutely best to keep going. And I can tell you from those surveys and from conversations that I've had with teachers and teachers with board members, it was evident that we couldn't keep what we were doing 5 days a week in person at the elementary. We could not sustain that until the end of the school year. So I had choices to make. I could have, when we went remote, we could have stayed remote, and continued along that lines. We could have went to the hybrid model in which the elementary students were coming in 2 days a week, in person, and 3 days a week remotely. Or we could have went to the 4 days a week with the 1 day asynchronous. To the school district, to all of us here in Wilson, it seemed we needed to support our teachers, supported our students with some little less screen time, and more importantly, be able to sustain what we're doing until the end of the year. Therefore, the decision was made when we returned after going remote for 2 weeks, that we would continue to be remote on asynchronous Wednesdays. And like I said, I received some phone calls, and I would say almost to a parent, after I explained that process, they understood what the reasoning behind it, and I did take ownership, and I apologize to all the parents if it was short notice that you had to do some regrouping pretty quick. It wasn't my intention. It just was the timing at which we were already in the remote mode, and then when returning, it just made sense to stay remote and for asynchronous Wednesdays. So if that caused any undue anxiety, I apologize. But like I said, almost to a person, the parents that I've talked to that have just asked why, they pretty much understood. In fact, a couple of them suggested the next time I did a video to the elementary parents, just explain that so parents would know. And again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please don't hesitate to call 751-9399. That phone number has an answering machine, and it's manned throughout the day by our district clerk, Mrs. Pavan, and she'll take a message, set up an appointment, whatever you need, both either an in-person appointment or a virtual appointment, whatever you need in order to have a conversation. So that's sort of the reasoning behind it. And like I said, it's not a perfect world, but we also, as a whole, I can say that our teachers in Wilson are doing a yeoman's effort and going above and beyond, trying to keep our kids at the elementary in as many days as possible. But to think we could have sustained what we were doing 5 days to the end of the year just wasn't possible. So a couple other updates that I have. First of all, with February break coming out, if you're planning to travel during February break, I've already sent an email out to staff. They know if they're going to travel, they need to contact their building principal and let me know. But if parents, you need to let your building principal know. So Mr. Diodati should know already. He sent a message out to all parents that if you're planning on traveling over February break, there are guidelines, regulations, and travel advisories that need to be followed. They need to be followed in order to keep us all safe for when we come back from February break, we can keep school going as much as possible. I also asked that while you're over February break, if you're staying home, please follow appropriate guidelines, mask wearing, social distancing, staying with your family groups and things like that, because it's really important for us to continue to stay in person as much as possible. We had a huge surge at the elementary of positive cases right after we came back from Christmas break. If we want to try to avoid that, we've got to make sure we're doing everything possible to keep all of us safe, both in school and out of school. In Niagara County, they did some changes to quarantines, and I'm really kind of telling you this to give you information because you may hear this, especially if you're an educator in another district or if you have friends and relatives that are in schools in other districts. There are other districts in Niagara County that are following the new Niagara County Department of Health guidelines for quarantine. So they have eliminated the 60-minute proximal contact rule, which means if you are 60 minutes masked in a room, you would be considered a primary contact and you may be quarantined. Now, that being said, using that same guidelines in Wilson Central School District, we have students in our elementary school that are less than 6 feet, so they're about 3 feet apart, using the dividers, masked when they're not inside the dividers, masks off when they're in dividers. So based on that guidelines, I cannot follow the new quarantine rules. So in Wilson Central School District, we are not going to eliminate quarantine. So if you're in an elementary classroom and someone becomes positive, whether you're a staff member or a student, we will be putting that entire class on remote. if you're with them more than 60 minutes. We'll continue to use our 60-minute rule because, again, at the elementary school, we are less than 6 feet using a barrier. I've cleared this with the Department of Health. They absolutely understand where we're coming from and how we're set up here at Wilson Central School District, specifically at the elementary, and they're absolutely in favor of making sure that we continue to make primary contacts. So therefore, if you're in an elementary classroom, so if a student or staff in an elementary classroom, after 60 minutes of being in that room, you would be considered a primary contact if someone in that room is identified as being positive. We would primary contact the entire, everyone would be a primary contact in the entire room, and then we'd send those names to the Department of Health for them to quarantine. Okay, so I hope that is an explanation. Again, any questions, reach out to me an email, make a phone call, 751-9399. I'd be glad to answer that question. I want to remind all parents, especially at the elementary school, it's so important that you do the new COVID screen. We had one that worked for the first half of the year. Through our survey, we were asked to shorten it a little bit and kind of put the questions and combine them and made it a little more user-friendly. But when you don't take the COVID survey for your child, or your child doesn't take it himself, therefore the child, when they get to school, is sent down to the nurse, and that just lines up the nurse's office. And right now, on an average day, we're averaging between 30 and 50 elementary students that are lining outside the nurse's office getting a COVID screen. And that's something I really need as a parent. I need you to take care of. That's the only way we can work together and work collaboratively to continue to go to the end of the year. Just recently, as the return from Christmas break, any student at the elementary school, any student that tests positive for COVID-19, there is a doctor release before they can go back to phys ed or to recess. So if your child was tested positive after Christmas break, you received from the school nurse, Mrs. Canfield, the release that needs to go to your pediatrician. Some pediatricians are willing to take care of it. Some are saying, no, you need to go see a cardiologist. And this is really an important piece of making sure that everybody remains safe, because there are some long-term effects of COVID-19 that they've determined around cardiac, multisystemic issues. So therefore, as a school district, our medical director has said you're not to allow anyone to go back to sports, PE, or recess until their family physician takes a look at them. And it's all dependent on their symptoms. If they're mild symptoms, no symptoms, or moderate to severe symptoms, where it has to happen. And then the doctor signs off that they can return. There's a gradual release that the parents need to help the school district get the students back into those recess and sports, and all that information the nurses have. I'm just letting you know that that's in the elementary, since the beginning of the new year, January 1 of 2021, we put this into place at the recommendation of our medical director. So all of the elementary students this year, most of them either return positive just before break or after. All of the elementary school students, before they return back to recess or phys ed, need to be released either by their doctor, or your doctor may send you to a cardiologist to have them do an exam. That's not something we can have. There's no choice. I just can't have them. I can't let them go to PE. I can't let them go to recess until that is done. At this point, this is the end of my updates. And again, I'll mention, if you have any questions, comments, and concerns, please give me a call, 751-9399, or send an email to the school to my numbers, tcarter@wilsoncsd.org. Have a wonderful February break. We have 2 days to go before the February break. Stay healthy, stay well, and stay Wilson strong. Thank you.